States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you and welcome. Kathy's going to give us a roll call.
I sure will. Saban?
Present.
Schreiber?
Here.
Bergbauer?
Here.
Galogly?
Here.
Deskin?
Here.
Loebs?
Here.
Bartleson? Here. Coretta?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, I don't know if we have a police chaplain here tonight, do we, Terry? I don't think so. All right, it's okay. Anybody have anything for liaison report?
Yeah, I have a quick one, just a couple seconds. Last week, sometime last week, Jaren Smogalski, who's a patrolwoman here, patrol officer in Lockport, she gave a presentation on, what was it called? It was safe housing.
Crime-free
Crime-free
housing.
Crime-free housing,
Okay.
which we will rename.
And so we've asked her to come and give the council the presentation that she gave last week to us and listen to some pretty good ideas. And other communities have implemented a program such as this, Romeoville, Naperville, a few of the other surrounding communities. Chief, you have anything you want to say about that?
It's currently being used in Naperville and
Romeoville.
in Romeoville. And it can be called whatever the council wants it to be called. It doesn't have to be crime-free housing, but it requires things like registration of rental properties, inspection of rental properties, and it also requires a background investigations on tenants. The landlords must do. Of course, any component in the proposal can be changed by the council. You can add or subtract anything you want, call it whatever you want, but I think it really does a lot of things that the council wanted to do in the past. And it would even help with the beautification committee and along those lines.
And if I may, the component is to actually give a tool to property owners, landlords, to do a better, better choices on their tenants. There's a component of it where there's an addendum to the lease agreement that states that the tenants will abide by all current regulations, not, avoid any criminal offenses. We want to make sure that that doesn't have any disparate impact on a protected class. But with that in mind, it's an education part too. The landlords will be required to go to an annual seminar in which they will be taught by some of our police officers and other people about how to, better educate yourself as a property owner, as a landlord, on making the, wise choice on who you want to be renting your property. And, part of it is that you want to make sure that the property value of the surrounding properties are not, hurt by any of the, some of the behavior that a tenant may cause in that area.
So she'll be here in 2 weeks and give us a presentation.
Yep, very good. All right, thanks, Darren. Anybody else? All right, so my workout partner, Heather, are you here tonight? There she is. And sometimes trainer, just depends on what day it is. Yeah, she was talking about the wonderful job the girls at Taft did with their cheerleading competition, and I said, please, you got to come out to the council. We would love to have you guys here, find out what happened, and to just acknowledge and thank you for all your hard work. So please, if I can have the coaches meet me up at the podium. I think Danielle and Jennifer are here today. Hi, Danielle. Jennifer, Piper, thank you. Well, I heard it was really cool. And you guys, fourth place, but the way Heather made it says, like, you guys were a small group and the other schools were larger and there were some reasons, but you guys did fantastic. And I think I'd rather have one of y'all tell the story. So if you can tell the council how it went down. Come on over here to the microphone.
I might
so everybody can
talk
hear.
a lot, sorry. First of all, thank you so much for having us here tonight and recognizing this amazing team. Sometimes cheer goes unrecognized, and it's nice to be here tonight. Our season is really long, so they've been with us for a long time. We tried out last May, and we practiced 3 days a week all summer and attend camp together. And when school starts, we up practices to 5 days a week. And that's not all that these girls do, and as their coaches and a mom of one of them, I can brag a little bit about them. A couple of them play on our softball team. 7 out of 10 of them play on our basketball team that won regionals and sectionals and went on to state. 9 of them are on the volleyball team. So during those seasons, they're pulling double duty. They're practicing 5 days a week, 6:45 in the morning, and after school having practice or games, and then weekend tournaments and competitions. We also have the student council president and vice president and members on the team. All 4 Beta Club officers are on the team, as well as other members of the Beta Club, which is our honor society. We have STEM club members, drama club members, so needless to say, these girls work extremely hard, and they're very focused when they're at practice so they can, make the best of it. Our competition season began at the end of November, and they placed first at our first competition, and then due to some injuries, which was my kid, but we had to pull out of a couple of competitions. And so we finally, after Christmas break, we got back at it, and they had to work really hard to get back to where we were before the injuries happened. And they did, and we competed at 2 local competitions where they placed first at both of those. And then a couple weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, we went to the IESA State Cheerleading Finals in Peoria, and they had the best performance of the season. It was amazing, and we're really picky coaches, and there wasn't a whole lot we could pick apart with it. It was really great, and they placed 4th out of 31 teams there. And the mayor is correct, that many of the schools are a lot larger than us. It's not distincted by school size, so any school can be in any division, and we're in the small division. So it was very impressive that they pulled out that 4th place finish. And even more impressive, we call it hitting 0 in the cheerleading world, and that means that you perform your routine with 0 deductions, technical deductions, and they did that 5 times this season, which that's very impressive to us because, and we realize that they actually do listen to us at practice. Sometimes we're not so sure, but they did go out and fix everything that we told them to fix, so that was really exciting. And we're so, proud of all their performances and the way that they represented Taft this season, out in the community at all the competitions. So we're really proud of them. And I'll just go through, if you guys want. Come on all up, girls. On the team, we have 6th grade Maggie Calabrese, Victoria Josefowski, Sarah McGraw, 7th grade, Aaliyah Melendez, Nora Peloso, and our 8th graders, Melody Allman, Lindsay Kamowitz, Maggie King, Caitlin Schultz, and Kylie Schurig.
Great job, and like, as your coaches are saying, there's so much dedication there, and it just, for you guys to apply yourself like that, it's so impressive, and we're really glad you were able to come out here so that we could just a lot over you, because we're just so excited that you're our neighborhood school and, all that you guys do for us. So it's really fun. And I like these bows. I think we're going to get bows for our council members.
I made them. I can make them for you.
Thank you, please. So,
Let's stick to a couple of hats.
Right, we double-sided tape, no problem.
yeah, that's all right. Well, you guys, thanks again. And so we have just a certificate that just says thank you. So this recognition is presented to the staff school cheerleading team for your dedication, loyalty, and commitment, and all that you guys are doing. So thank you so much for coming out. It's our pleasure when you come here. So
thank you so much for having us.
Are you guys going to cheer or what? I said, Heather, I want to cheer. Cheer number 5, something like that. How does that work?
They're dancing.
All right, here it comes.
There we go. No. Do the crowd.
Finest team, we're the best you've ever seen. Lockworks, finest team, we're the best you've ever seen. Lockworks, finest team, we're the best you've ever seen. Lockworks, finest team, we're the best you've ever seen.
Jazz hands now.
Well, thank you, ladies, for coming out today. Really appreciate it. Like I said, we have so many great schools in our city, and every time something like this happens, it's our pleasure to have you guys out here. So, you are welcome to stay for the meeting and hear everything. Most people get up and leave, but you don't have to. But if you do, no one's offended if you do. Yes. All right, very good.
Thank you.
That was the first one that did a cheer for him. Isn't that the first one that's
Yes,
done a
I
cheer?
told Heather, I said, if they're coming, they need to cheer, so. All right, very fun. All right, so, committee of the whole. All right, we'll keep moving along. First one is,
Got it.
city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So tonight, we had something on here for your information where we were considering something new in our downtown. We're requesting authorization to possibly enter into an agreement for valet services and supporting the downtown businesses. Lockport's been fortunate enough to experience a little bit of a renaissance in our downtown. We've certainly completed the streetscaping on a couple of blocks. New tenants like Stagecoach and now Tangle Roots business is coming in to join Embers and Mamo Nestas. And of course, Tallgrass, probably one of the longest standing restaurants we have in the downtown. And the city, as you know, continues to look at unique ways to add parking lots or find public parking, or now also considering possible valet services to assist those businesses on the weekends. This is something where the market demand may ultimately determine how much we do. It's kind of like those Liberty Mutual commercials. We're only going to spend what you need. So we're looking to kind of find a balance in regards to how much funding the city would be willing to do maybe in the first year to underwrite something like this. We did meet 3 different companies and had interviews and proposals from all of them. And surprisingly, the costs were pretty similar, whether you did it per day, per hour. It all worked out to be very similar. And the idea would be we'd have one central point. You can see this aerial on your screen here where we've got the ones in green are where the businesses that we were talking about the most are. We talked about using the Roxy or the corner of 11th as a drop-off point. Potentially, we talked to Tom Alves about his parking lot for short-term usage. It's close enough where the companies we interviewed, they might run 8-9 blocks in Chicago. So for them to run to the metro lots in the evening that are pretty much vacant, later in the hours, they had no problem going that far. We could use Central Square even. So we haven't finalized every detail yet, and we're trying to figure out what's going to be the best thing. But we're interested in entertaining a proposal with one of the companies and kind of roll this out. Probably wouldn't be implemented for several months yet. They would have to do interviewing and training and look at the logistics more of how this is going to flow. One of the things I liked about the firm that we're recommending, they have an app that if you use one point of drop-off, you'll get a text, and you can text them when you're ready to leave your restaurant, and they will pick you up at where you are. So they can bring your car to Mama Nessa's, they can bring your car to Stagecoach, they can bring your car to Tallgrass. So that seemed to work out well. And they were the larger of the firms that we talked to, and felt confident in their technologies and how they tracked everything. This would be an agreement that would have an out clause with a 60-day notice, regardless if we feel like it didn't work. But I'd like to roll it out this year and potentially through next year, give it a full year. We might have about 2 seasons in it. I think when Lock and Mule opens later this summer, we're hoping by July or by Old Canal Days, that things will be pretty busy down here in the summertime. And certainly public parking is one of those concerns. And it's something we'd like to explore. We wanted to share with you and see if you would be interested in allowing us to do this. We're looking to get a dollar amount that we can work with, a not to exceed number, and then we can work with the firms and see how the demand goes, and then we can always scale it back or scale it up. And I think $40,000 would be plenty to get through the rest of this year. And like I said, we may not even start it till June or after Old Canal Days, just depending on demand and what's going on. But it would be nice if we could get them started at a slow rate and see how it goes. There's other ways that you could raise dollars to help offset the cost. You could charge $5 a car for parking, but all 3 of the firms that we met with were certainly open to charging anything you wanted, but they also said in the beginning you may not want to charge anything because you want to create that demand. You want them to realize there's a valuable service and they can utilize it. You can always charge for it in the future once it's successful and ongoing. So we took the recommendation right now where we'd like to do a proposal where it's hosted by the city. We have gaming funds available, over $1 million in the account that would be available. So, you know, a $30,000-$40,000 ask this year isn't too bad. And we just wanted to get your individual feedback. I see a couple of the restaurant owners in the audience tonight, if they want to say anything or if you have any questions for them. But basically, this would be a weekend program where they have a couple employees on the streets and maybe a third, depending on demand, for certain peak hours from, 5 to 8 or 9. But it would be available from like 5 to 11 on the weekends.
And I know, we've been working hard, Ben and Lance as well, as now that he's on board, about trying to find different ways to milk every spot we have down here. And what's also been talking to some of the property owners who, like behind the Norton Building and Rosemary, about possibly using those areas for employee parking. Because it's true, I mean, just as these new places open, we're blessed to have them, but it's not just about customers, it's about where the people that work there park and not taking up prime spots. So I know you guys have been working on getting some agreements where employees can park in areas outside of there. That's been freeing up some spots. But I do like this idea. Number one, it's something that if it doesn't work, we don't do it, and it's gaming money. And it's not a long-term liability as if we pave a whole parking lot somewhere, if we demolish buildings and took on that cost forever, salting and paving. It's just something that we can try and see how it goes and tweak it from that point. So, I think it's a good first step. And again, a lot of times for years, I think parking has been more of a perceived problem than an actual problem. I've never known anyone who drive around and say, I couldn't find a spot, so I left. Most of the time, people felt like if I can't park right in front, there's no parking. And of course, that's not reality. You walk 5 times as far at the mall and don't even think twice about it. But that said, Roxy's has events all the time now, which is wonderful, and that's a whole new aspect. And you're right, with Lock and Mule coming on board, and with the opening of Stagecoach and stuff like that, I think it's starting to not just be a perceived problem. So
Talk to the public landing too. They're the only one that's kind of outside the bubble that far over, but the firm said they could hire extra people for evenings when they have weddings or big events, and if they want to pay a little extra, or if we want to try to embrace that in the first season as well. So I was talking to Dan. And I know that I see Frank and Mary here. I know some of the patrons that go to Mama Nessa sometimes complain of the parking or the availability, but sometimes it's more perception than anything, but their perception is their reality. And this might be an opportunity where maybe restaurant sales goes up because people find the service something they want to take advantage of. Yeah.
Yeah, but go ahead.
Will this company police themselves with their employees that are actually going to be doing the valet parking and so
Right.
forth?
So they have, we would have their insurance and liability insurance and naming us and the proper coverages for them driving cars. They also, one of the reasons we like this one was you're a firm here that's been here for 20 years. They have a lot of employees in the Chicagoland area. They won't just put some brand new kid out there. They plan to bring seasoned people to start out and do training, and that's one of the reasons why they probably won't even begin for, even if we said yes tomorrow, they wouldn't start for like 60 days, as there's a rigorous hiring and training and background checks and things.
Background checks.
Yeah, they're pretty thorough.
That's really my concern, because they're taking out
Sure,
people's,
sure.
Yeah,
vehicles
There was
and-
other kind of strange questions that came up, like what happens if the valet service is from 5 to 11 and the patrons until midnight, whatever, and they stay out there, they stay committed. I suppose at some point, if someone never comes, they're going to have to call the police and give the keys to the manager of the restaurant or whatever. But those are the kinds of things that we're going to sort out as we go forward. If this is something the council is open to, I'll have a resolution created, and we'll put it on the February 19th agenda for a vote. But we were just trying to gauge, feedback in regards to utilizing city funds and underwriting the service. It certainly benefits more than just the restaurants. If some folks want to come down for their training class at Thimble's on a Saturday night and they're looking for a place to park, they can use it. So it won't be exclusive to just the restaurant. So again, the Roxy or other events or things that are going on. We might probably tell them not to be here during Old Canal Days. That'll be a crazy weekend, so there'll be certain dates that maybe they won't be available. But social media and those kinds of things, and I'm sure the restaurant participants can create flyers and have information for their patrons to learn about the service. So I think it's worth trying. I think it'd be interesting.
Ben, you've actually answered most of my questions that I had, and maybe this should go to the owners, I'm wondering if we should just start out with a couple things. Instead of going 6 to 11, how about 7 to 1? Because some of the places, like Paradise Bay, Embers, and Stagecoach, are open until 2. I think if you close, I don't know, if somebody gets out at 10, and they're like, oh my God, they're gonna tow my car, I gotta get, this way it's a little bit later. The other thing too is, are we taking into effect things like First Fridays with Abe? Because I think that's gonna be huge, for that parking.
First Fridays with Abe.
Special events, sure. Mhm.
So, and then,
The hours would be negotiable, just to answer your question. We can certainly package that all in. I think the restaurants would probably want it to start at 5 or 5:30 at the latest. One of the things where I had questioned were, what if they're just dead and no one's using it at 8 o'clock, and, can we just cut it off short and save money? And they said, well, really, they need 5-hour minimums because they can't hire people. People aren't interested in working and only getting an hour's worth
Yeah.
of pay. So there are 5-hour minimums and things like that. So certainly understood that once they kind of explained it from their perspective. And but I think, whether they stay on a little later. But again, that's why, depending on when we start and how many employees they use, they may only need 2 instead of 3. And so I think, the dollar request is more than enough to manage and have there till 1 in the morning or whatever we feel is going to be successul for them.
So where will they actually be posted at, so that people know that there's valet
Yeah,
for wherever?
they're going to
restaurant
create,
they go into?
they're going to order some special customized valet stands and like the equipment you see here. Right now, the proposal is to have it in front of the Roxy and kind of cone off a few areas so you have a place to pull in. And maybe the overflow would be the 11th Street corner there where you can kind of go up and make a right. And they'll have this box, and we may need to find a place to store that for them when it's not being used during the week, and whether the Roxy has space or whether we put it at the Scale House or something. We'll figure that out. There's a few minor details that we still need to work out with the firm, but those don't cost us anything at this point. It's just trying to figure out logistically what will work best.
So my question is, so the money that the city spends will be just to run it? Who will be responsible for marketing the whole?
I would guess that the restaurants will be doing a lot of that themselves, but also we will be doing some of that. We have a marketing budget. We do a lot of social media things that we can do, and we were going to plan to do that. It's not really much of an expense on top of everything we already included as a tagline or a logo, or we could even put it on our billboard for a month and say, now starting Valet Downtown Lockport. There's Amanda and I have been talking about some kind of creative ideas on how to get the word out.
Will those locations have handicap accessibility to get in and out of their vehicles?
Will those locations have handicap?
Because a lot of people who tend to like to valet are people who cannot walk very well.
Sure. Well, the downtown
And then
is
that
all
would make it
IDOT.
difficult to cross the street then to get to the other side.
Those are all high handicapped accessible parking things. I mean, they can.
But
there's
you've got them
handicap
both
parking
on the
now.
same side of the street. I mean, you would want to make valet on both sides of the street then for someone who is not
You could
able
do
to
that,
walk.
but there's an additional charge for an additional stand. So yeah, you could spend $60,000 if you want to. I mean, we can talk about that, but there's nothing prohibiting handicapped people from going across the street in wheelchairs or whatever. I certainly understand your idea for convenience, but yeah, we could do that.
Those
but-
two locations are right next to each other. The other thing I thought is we'll be charging more to rent a bike in Lockport with our bike rental than valet a car.
Sure.
So that's kind of ironic with our bike program. And then the only place I've ever felt like playing Frogger for parking is actually the public landing. And so for me, if you're going to put valet somewhere, the only place I don't feel safe crossing is going to public landing, because I find myself parking at City Hall or further if there's an event at public landing, and trying to cross the street at night. Nobody seems to want to stop at the crosswalk there. And so you can either go all the way to the corner and around, depending on where you park. But downtown Lockport, I feel like we have traffic lights very close, and it's easier to cross there. And so parking for me, depending on which building I'm going to, is not as much of a problem as it is at public landing for an event. And I do know people, when we were at events, when Limestone was at public landing, who did not come to events at public landing because they couldn't find parking.
Sure.
Brian, what's the status? I know you guys were looking at working with IDOT on a lighted crossing there.
Yes, we did. We reached out to the local permits engineer at IDOT. We have the application submitted. Hopefully within, I don't know exactly how long, but I would anticipate within 4 to 6 weeks, we should at least have some response.
Can you explain exactly what we're talking about?
Sure, yeah. So I know that the request has been out there several times from the city to get a flashing beacon at the crosswalk at 8th Street. So this would be across State Street from basically where the new Dunkin' Donuts is, the library side, across the street over to the public landing. And what the request was made about, I want to say 3-4 years ago. It was, yes, we would consider it. And then when we requested it as part of the project last year, we were told by IDOT that it was no longer an opportunity because of some past, some recent safety concerns that they had elsewhere in the state. Just so happens we stayed on it. We had some requests from some of our aldermen and women. We asked them again, and as of March of last year, it's now back in the ballgame, and so we have submitted. That would provide a flashing beacon that would say, also some signage that would allow us to have these installed right at that crossing. Pedestrians would, I guess there's no delineators, there's no gates or anything like that. It's not going to be a stoplight. However, it would be a flashing beacon that would allow pedestrians to more easily cross this area. It would bring notification. It would bring, obviously a visible warning to this crossing. So we are trying to actively work on that. And again, this location meets every criteria that IDOT has. It's just a matter of time here before we get it.
That would be good.
We can talk to the company about what those additional costs would be, whether you have another stand on both sides of the street, or whether you have a stand down at Valet, a third stand, or, we can try to get some of those answers for you.
Would it make sense then to put it on, just, let's say we can afford this, and can we put it on the other side where the Dunkin' Donuts is? Would that make sense?
Put a delay?
Yeah. Would that make sense or no?
No, the people are still trying to cross the street, I think is
Oh,
what
yeah,
Catherine's
that's right.
saying, the Frogger part. Logistically, the public landing does have its challenges. I know some of the bar owners, and I know Public Landing had looked at it before too, where, valet firms, the easeability of getting it out of there is difficult. There's been some talk about trying to put another road in behind there to link in behind the Delwood Tire, but it's a little cost prohibitive to do that. But he would have to give up some of his parking to create some kind of staging area, and we'd have to talk to Dan and the owner about that. But so it's possible. I mean, I think we can certainly ask a few more questions and try to, and that's again, if you allow us the funding, we're happy to engage as much or as little as you choose, and we can work and see what works and what doesn't work and try to accommodate everyone. But at some point, I just need to know the dollar amount that you don't want to go beyond. I mean, certainly you could put a valet at every restaurant, but I'm not thinking we're advocating for that, but.
Sure. Well, I think, it's going to be one of those things that you tweak and as you go. That's the beauty of it.
Sure.
Is that doing this kind of approach to solving the parking concerns
Just come
is
back
tweakable.
for
So
more money if we needed it, if we thought it was going.
I'm all
well.
for putting it on the agenda so that we can talk through it. Does anybody else have any thoughts? Okay. All right. Thank you for all the work on
You're
that.
putting it, on just an action item, or?
Yeah, we'll put it
Yeah,
on
we'll
for an
put it on.
action item, because Ben will still, I think you said
It's
he
just more
wanted to-
information.
Yeah,
little
and
more
so
tighter
do you want to
information.
have more time to just come up with other information and bring it back to us?
Yeah, it shouldn't be that difficult.
I'm okay. So you thought that this would, the way they're presenting it now with one stand, wherever it ends up being,
Right.
is,
Maybe so if the TV can just show the downtown valet map, so everyone can see what I'm referring to. That one, where you can,
Well, you want this one, right? You want.
so you can see where the two are located in red right now.
So the primary would be where the Roxy is, the small box rectangular, and then the overflow, if there was too many backed up, they would need to go pull around the corner by 11. So I don't think you're going to use 11th very much, but the plan was to basically have one focal point. You've got the Roxy marquee, it's a nice visual, you can advertise it and say, drop your car at the Roxy, and then they can be picked up at all these restaurants, including Public Landing.
it's really one stand. It's
Yeah,
not
it's
that
really
there's
one
two
stand. It's not two stands. The red is just to show where it could be. We would just choose one at this point. We can get more pricing to decide if we, that's just the metro lot, but, the public landing's not even on this map, it's further to the north, and it is isolated, and so there will be an additional expense just for one user, but, it's certainly that I'll talk to them about it, and actually I already did talk to them about it, and they just said, yeah, our hourly rate applies, so they would just hire 2 more kids. One of the X factors that was adding costs was, do they need to bring in a third person because they were so busy between 6 and 9? Maybe we don't do that, and we use those funds towards a second stand down by Public Landing. I agree, I think I was kind of concerned about that as well. I talked to Dan about it. Whether someone having a wedding would be willing to put some money towards a valet. But again, if we're underwriting it for one part, we should underwrite it for everyone in the first year and see how it goes. Year 2, we could always, find out if the restaurants feel it was such a success that they want to either put some money in or they want to validate parking if we start charging. Or again, there's a lot of things that can roll out of this, but I think it's a worthy endeavor to do a little trial and error, see what's best, make some tweaks, continue to roll it out. And we just need to know, the council's kind of palette for funding this. If it's 30, 40, 50, I'm not sure it really changes much when you have $1 million available.
And let me just ask this question again. You said that they can pick us up somewhere else.
Yes, the app, from what I understand, the app, and I've used FC Valet up in Oakbrook, where you drop off your car, and you send them a text, they send you a text back, and then when you're done with your meal, you can say, I'm ready, and I'm here, and they'll bring it to you, from what I understand.
And how far away will they bring it to you?
Anywhere in these identified areas,
And what is the identified area?
4 or 5 blocks.
So crossing the other side of 9th Street?
Sure.
So it's quite possible then at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock when we start, when it's daylight, people come to the valet, walk down all the way to Public Landing, and now the valet is bringing back to Public Landing? Is that what you're saying?
I'll validate that with them, but yeah, I think so.
Okay, just want to know if that's
A
the case.
drop-off point was an additional cost, so.
Well, no, I mean, there's a lot of difference between crossing a street during the daylight hours for some and crossing it at night. And I'm just asking.
Yeah, it's fine. Ultimately, like, again, we're trying to do everything we can, whether it was like adding, yeah, so that's good. And we'll see, find out what they can do, but,
Yeah.
all right.
It's a
Thank
very
you
good
for
idea,
your
Ben.
work,
Thank you.
We'll have the agenda for February 19th.
All right, what's PD1, reciprocal reporting agreement?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, PD1 is a request authorizing the city to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Calvin Millen Grove School District 91 to share criminal information. This is authorized, this is required by the Juvenile Court Act. Sonny reviewed the intergovernmental agreement, and our request and recommendation is that you allow the city to enter into this intergovernmental agreement.
All right, any thoughts, concerns on it from council? Sounds like, all good with it?
My only question was, will we do this for other schools that want this, or is it just a certain
This is the
incident?
first one, and I think Sonny was probably going to tell you that it's up to the school district.
It is,
Not the police department.
Under the school code, the state school code, each of the school districts are required to form like a committee with parents and school officials regarding sharing alleged criminal violations by students, either the police agency sharing with the school and school vice versa sharing with the police department. There's no obligation on the actual police agency to do this, so it's up to each of the school districts to do that. This is the first, of course, of the school district, but I'm sure once the word gets out, we may be approached by other school districts. And it's pretty pro forma agreement, nothing, nothing major, and it's, pretty perfunctory.
So all they do is reach out to you then if they're interested in this? Or who do they reach out to? To just, to Terry,
Yep.
Terry? The police department they reach out to? And you just add them then to this, is each one a separate vote then for us, or we can't? Is it possible to reach out to all the schools before the next vote, and then we can just add them all in, or no?
It's up to the school district. They, it's like any agreement, it has to be, initiated by them. So again, the obligation is on the school district and not the actual police agency to do that.
All right, so we good with an action item on that? Yes. Okay.
action or consent?
Oh, I'm sorry, consent.
Consent, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, Brent, what do you got?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have several items on the agenda this evening. First is the request to purchase an ODB Extreme VAC 30-yard leaf collector. Sounds a lot more exciting than it really is. It's
I was going to say, man, wow!
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's essentially a large vacuum, and this would be to replace one of our existing leaf collectors. So right now we have 3 leaf collectors. One is new as of last year, and we're requesting a new one this year, and then one more the following year. One of the items that I do have in here listed is the pros and cons that I just wanted to touch on. I have not been here, for 20 years, 10 years, anything like that. However, one thing that has been brought to my attention that is over the last several years, some of the older parts of town have continued to produce leaves like we would expect. Some of the newer parts of town are starting to produce leaves that we did not anticipate. Not anticipate, that's the wrong word. Did not, have never been producing in the past or have producing only minor amounts. So one of the things that we're faced with is 3 leaf machines on the road at one time is really what we need. And with having 3 leaf machines that were 20 plus years old, we always inevitably we had one down. We were trying to take parts from one to get 2 on the street. So I just want to point out that it is very beneficial to have this machine, and then hopefully next year we're lucky enough to have council consider us again for the 3rd machine. But having 3 on the streets is really becoming a necessity in order to keep up with the program. So this evening I would like to request we purchase in the amount of $88,910 from Standard Equipment, resolution number 20-008. Again, this would be the second of the full request of 3. The 3rd one would be next year. Would ask for council's consideration.
Thoughts, questions? All good? All right, we'll put that on a consent, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Next item, PW-2, this is for a 2020 Ford F-450 XL 4x4 1-ton truck. So this is a 1-ton truck. This is per our replacement program. As you can see, the purchase would be through the Suburban Purchasing Cooperative. I didn't mention on the previous item, but that is also through a purchasing cooperative. So this is a state purchase, essentially. We get a price that is able to be, we're buying based on the state's purchase price, so it is a price that is much better than just going out and purchasing if we were looking for one and trying to get the best price. Again, this is a replacement of existing truck. The existing truck is looking through here, and I know that I have the documentation in here, and I don't. This is a replacement of an existing truck, so it would just be bringing one into the fleet, removing the old one out of the fleet. This evening, requesting $44,030 from Curry Motors to be considered for council for the 2020 purchase.
All right, thoughts, concerns? All right, sounds like a consent. All right. All right, PW3.
Thank you. PW-3, this is combining a couple efforts, again, trying to just do the best we can and get the best pricing and the best opportunities that we can for these 2 jobs this year. So this is for the design and construction engineering services and some additional engineering services for 2 different projects. The first being the 2020 resurfacing program. On an annual basis, we budget for resurfacing, as council is aware. This would be for the preparation of those plans and then also the construction observation. Construction observation on resurfacing is never full-time. And so what you end up doing is you end up paying a premium to have an individual out here for 4 or 5 hours. They're driving back to their office. What we've tried to do this year, and I think we're going to be successful if council is in agreement, would be to also have Christopher Burke do a part-time observation on 2nd to 5th Street. 2nd to 5th Street is about 16 blocks that we're doing this year. We will have our own internal engineers, internal staff out there. However, there will be times where we will have multiple operations going on that one person simply cannot cover. and different parts of again, the 16 block area. So what we're asking is that Christopher Burke be out there part-time on one project, part-time on another. We're able to, again, utilize this individual for essentially full-time work in the city, but again, it's spread out over 2 projects, so we're getting a little more bang for our buck. The total cost of this work is not to exceed $313,954. This is the city budgeted $125,000 and $196, so a total of $321,000 for this work. So about $7,000-8,000 under that budgeted amount. Again, all this work would be done this year, 2nd to 5th Street, and our 2020 resurfacing program. Looking for council's consideration this evening.
Thoughts, concerns?
The only question I have about Gauger is, will that start after school gets out? Because the bus stop is right there at the entrance of Sagebrook. And that's where the road is going to be resurfaced, if I look at this correctly.
Yeah, we can certainly work around that. We have been taking a much more aggressive approach.
Yeah, the road is crumbling there, the curb is.
With some of.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure, because I'm surprised that the bus stop is right there. But if you do it prior to school letting out, that's exactly where they let the kids out.
Sure. Yeah, we will absolutely work around that, whether that's a weekend, Saturday, Sunday, or a holiday, or simply waiting until, after the end of May or early June to make sure that we're working around that. Yep. Yep.
All right, very good. So we're okay with the consent then? Okay. All right, Brent, you're on a roll.
I certainly am. Peterbilt Model 348 truck. This is PW-4. This is a new Peterbilt to replace truck number 133. So that is a 2009 International dump where we have moved to Peterbilt. This will be the 3rd Peterbilt that we are purchasing from the city, or as the city, over the last couple of years. This is through a co-op, Sourcewell NJPA. So again, that means that we have utilized purchasing power through a larger grouping. So I do feel like this is a very good price. $88,000 and some change for the equipment, lights, salt spreader, and then $84,000 for Monroe. So basically what you do is you buy the chassis and then you get all the add-ons from another group for a combined price of $172,824.90. So this is a new salt and plow truck. Again, as you can see, these are not cheap. However, in order to stay up, maintain additional roads that we're taking on, additional improvements throughout the city, I would request that this purchase be considered this evening.
All right, thoughts, concerns? Okay, man. Thanks for continuing to flush out projects here. So we'll do that on consent. And what else you got there, Brent?
PW-5. This is MFT resolution for maintenance of streets and highways by municipality under the Illinois Highway Code. So essentially what this is, we've submitted the application for Old Canal Days. What this would be is this is just the kind of the bow on top. This is the MFT resolution that would allow us to request through the state in order to officially close that down for the duration of the Old Canal Days. So again, the permits in this is just kind of that finishing touch, and I am on the wrong item, aren't I?
Yeah, it's kind of like you're mixing it up over there, man.
Yeah. Jeez.
Get it all done at once.
Flipping through my paperwork, and I'm reading on the screen as well. So, boy. So my apologies.
I'd say we put that on a consent agenda.
I'm getting ahead of that.
Next.
That's coming a little later, giving you guys a little bit of what's to come here. 2020 MFT resolution. I'm sorry about that. So maintenance of streets and highways by municipality under the Illinois Highway Code. So what this is on an annual basis, we have to appropriate funds for maintenance and for our salt purchase. This just allocates the money that we have, allocates it, tells the state, here's what our plan is. And then when we go to actually utilize that, we submit our paperwork on the engineering side. So this would be $125,000 that we budgeted for crack filling and $125,000 for pavement marking. We do that work, we do that paperwork, we submit it on the city's behalf, our engineering department internally. but we have to allocate that money. The other portion of this is the allocation of salt, $280,000. Salt went up 70%. It went up from about $55 to $90 a ton this year. So we are going to have to evaluate very closely whether or not we want to, how we want to address that next year. Do we want to go out to bid again? Do we want to, you having the opportunity to hold that price for multiple years? Do you roll the dice and see if it is going to go up, go down? Some of this had to do with the river. There was some lock work that was done this year. So we just have to evaluate that. We'll know more at that time, but at this point, right now, we're just over $90 a ton for this fiscal year, so I would just like to allocate. This is simply an allocation. This is just telling IDOT, here's what we're going to allocate. If we go back out to bid and we get it at 55 or 60 a ton, we pay that price. This is, again, this is strictly an allocation, just covering ourselves and making sure that we are where we need to be next winter. So this evening, this would be for, again, the MFT resolution allowing us to allocate funds and looking for council's consideration on this item.
Any thoughts? We good?
I just had a question on the salt. Since it's
Yes.
been a mild winter,
Yes.
do we have a lot of leftover salt this year, or how do you gauge it? Like, can you wait 1 month before you go get the salt, or how does that work?
We absolutely could, and what we need is we need a gigantic storage bin. So basically what happens is when you go through the state purchase, which every municipality that I'm aware of goes through the same state purchase, you have to, when you accept their bid, accept that dollar amount, you are also saying, I will take a minimum of 80% of what I'm telling you I need. So on an annual basis, we use about 2,800, 2,500 tons of salt. Annual, that's just a general normal winter. We have to take 80% of that. We can take up to 120% of that at that price. So there's that flex. So, and you have to put this request in March. So we're gonna be putting the request in for next year coming up here. So you're guessing, you're trying to figure out how much you're gonna have in the barn at the end of the year. Are we gonna have another April storm? Are we gonna have multiple April storms? So there's a lot of things to weigh. We will have a full barn, I can almost assure you, provided we don't have a lot of heavy, events this year. We will start next year with full barn at Prime and then down at the treatment plant. We will have all the salt we can store in those two facilities. So that's another consideration next year. Do we lower our request? Do we lower it down to 2,000 tons? Again, these are all things we have to, you're trying to throw a dart at the wall and make sure. The last thing I want to do is go into the winter without enough salt and able to take care of the city. So a lot of things to play with. However, yes, we will make sure that we have a full stock for next year.
Some years there's shortages and communities are actually calling us to buy salt from us.
Yeah, that happened. We were the only
years
ones
ago.
around that
Yeah,
had
we
the
had
salt.
plenty, and we didn't sell because we didn't want to put ourselves in their position, but it is a bit of a guess.
So do we need to, build another bin for you, or?
That is something that we've talked about, especially with some locations, as we start to progress a little north and a little east. Most of our facilities, our facilities are on the south end of town, so that is something to consider. Yeah, so, again, the costs of storage, there's a lot of things to weigh, but yes, that is something that when that time comes where we feel like that's the best opportunity, that is something to talk about logistically. And again, I don't want to get off topic too much, but logistically, there are some benefits to only having a 10-minute trip to go reload salt rather than having a 30-minute trip. So if you're up by McGregor and North Street, rather than coming all the way back down south, maybe up in that area, there would be a benefit to having another barn on 151st Street, let's say, in Gauger by our wells and by the tower. Again, these are things that we're discussing internally and making sure that we're aware of from, like I said, logistics.
And there's actually, the IEPA is about to decide on whether or not there should be more stringent requirements on salt leakage into the Des Plaines Valley River. So each of the municipalities the communities that, including private industries, would have to actually comply with additional regulations on preventing salt from seeping through. So it might actually be more costly for us to maintain that salt.
Be using beet juice in a couple of years.
And I have told them that they have to come in and make sure you guys are all good with that, because we don't want to be told to use less salt and then have snowy streets, and then, so I told them they've got to come in, they've got to make you guys aware of that first, so.
Okay, so we're okay with the consent on that then? All right, and lastly, you have,
All right, last authorizations for the 2 I&M Canal Bike Trail grant submissions. So, as council's aware, we have been discussing the modifications to the existing limestone bike trail. This is from about 2nd Street, Heritage Village, down to 6th Street, and then it would actually turn up and into some parkway onto some existing pavement all the way to the public landing. So basically Heritage Village to the public landing. We're looking to address, there is some stormwater improvement that needs to be done, some areas that get underwater. Majority of the work, though, will be paving it and hopefully making it a little more accessible for, for our area residents, pedestrians, users of that path from other neighboring communities. So we're looking to apply for an RTP grant, and then the secondary, basically extension of that. We've got some in the city, some parts of our bike path are already paved, so we would be going down to the next section, which would be Division Street, and that heads south towards again an I&M canal crossing. You can barely see that in the far southwest portion of the right picture. This would be a bike path improvement, so it would be taking a limestone path, paving it. It would be additional stormwater if there's any additional culverts or any additional stormwater items that need to be addressed. So both of these we are presenting. They're both due right around the first week of March. So what we're asking for this evening would just be the basically resolutions that would, if we were selected for one or both of these projects, these are 2 different grants, if we were selected, that we would be willing to accept that grant and do the work. So what I'm asking for this evening would essentially be, council, if we were to come back, if we were to get this, would we be willing to take the money that they're offering us and do the work? There would be a match in both of these. There are varying degrees of matches. One is 20% match, and I believe the other is a 50% match. But again, the request here is, if we got it, we want to be able to accept it. So I'm asking council this evening for consideration on these 2 items.
Spelling out the total cost then, knowing that we'd
Yes.
either half or 20%.
Yep. So the cost on the RTP grant, we have a current project estimate of about $250,000. They would be willing to give us upwards of $200,000. Again, I don't want to guarantee. That's an 80-20. So our cost on that would be $50,000. They would pay $200. We would get $250,000. We would be done. So that's an easier sell, I guess. Associated with Illinois Bicycle Path Grant. So it's the Bicycle Path Grant, which is the second resolution. That is a 50-50 grant. Again, that one goes up to, they would be going up to $250,000 on that one. However, the cost for this second one, it's a little bit less. There's not as much stormwater. There's not as much rerouting. So the cost of that one would be more in that $200,000 range. So a 50-50, we would be probably looking to outlay about $100,000, getting $100,000.
Okay. Well, I think, I just had a
Yes.
meeting with Marigovsky the other day. He came out here and working with Sicko as well, and just, connecting the 3 cities, Lamont, Lockport, and Joliet. And there's things going on more and more all the time. As our paintball park opens up, has opened up down here, as the Joliet prison is getting more and more popular, as Lamont brings in that zip line park. I mean, to have this kind of connection is really special. I know when I was younger, I used to take my bike, park in Batavia, and ride my bike along the Potawatomi Path to, Geneva, St. Charles, and you just make a day of it. And I think, as talking with Marigovsky about making some other connections, and working towards how to, even up in Lamont, how they're trying to get back over the sanitary shipping canal, so then you could actually ride it all the way to Bridgeport on this, going through Lamont. I think these are all really good things, I think, for the overall brand and of the city, and just making a really good recreational thing. I think I like it. I think it's a good idea. I appreciate you guys pursuing it. And I think it does have value
Yeah, it's
for the
about
community.
$500,000 worth of work for about $150,000, so that's pretty good.
Any
And we do
thoughts?
have budgeted 50,000 of city funds, and then we have a match that, for the park district on the north half for 50,000. So we have not really approached them on that south one. We're taking a little bit of an opportunity chance here where both of these grants came out and they just came out, so we're going after them. We're going to see what we get, or we're suggesting we go after them. So my suspicion would be that if we were to get both, we could allocate 50, maybe 25 and 25 to the north, and then 25 and 25 to the south. So we would be, I'll say, short 50,000 from what we budgeted. However, we can also work with the park district on that. Also, we can approach IDNR and see if they would have any interest in sharing any
I
of
believe
the
the Park
costs.
District plans to redo their paths through Delwood Park this year or next.
do,
I
that
did,
is
so
correct.
that might be a nice connection down there too, so.
Okay. Any thoughts, questions?
Once you put it up, can you just put like parking so people know where they can park to jump on bike paths?
We can do wayfinding signage and
Yeah,
all that.
I just think that, like, there's, accessibility where people don't actually know that there's these things on the other side of it that you can access, even walking it. I don't think everybody knows you can walk back there. I mean, that sounds pretty basic to somebody who lives here and knows it, but
Sure.
it's kind of hidden.
No, I think better wayfinding and promotion is always good, and no issues with that, so. Anyways, sounds like consent, we're good there. All right, any new business there, friends?
Mayor, I'd like to just ask permission to just piggyback on the, on what Darren had said about the crime,
Crime-free ordinance?
crime-free, yes, ordinance. So, I've received some information that I'd like to send to you, Sonny, and also to the police department, due to the fact that they'll be doing a presentation for us. Because this, it's a very touchy, situation and issue when it comes to, rentals and so forth. So I'd like to submit this so that everyone is aware of it prior to our presentation in 2 weeks, and I'll get that over to you, Lance, and to Ben, and Mayor, I can send that over to you too. So that way we can all kind of get educated, not only on, how the police department views it, which is very important, because that's going to really be the big, a thing for us to, take into consideration, plus what the real estate industry, how they view this also, okay? Because it's very important that we really watch out for the benefit of everyone, when it comes to this issue, okay?
Yep. I think it's important here.
Yeah.
Everybody's input.
Yeah.
So thank
yeah,
you, Joe.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Rick, you got a card. Why don't you come on up? Rick, if you don't mind, if you just state your name and where you live, just so we know where.
Yeah, my name is Rick Macy's. I live at 433 East 4th Street. That's the southwest corner of 4th and Madison here in Lockport. I've moved in at Lockport in '05, and a couple of the things that attracted myself and my fiancée, she passed away in 2015, was that Lockport had a lot of big trees, and city lights were white lights instead of those ugly orange ones that hurt the eyes. But anyway, I wanted to point out that the Arbor Day Foundation changed the planting zone from Zone 5 to Zone 6. Lockport is in Zone 6. It's been so for a few years now already. Some years, I should say, because I don't know the exact amount of years. And Chicago is already buying trees for warmer climates. They're looking ahead 100 years, and they're planting trees that are more suitable to warmer climates. Because as we know, there is global climate change and warming going on. The subjects are trees and sidewalks. This project that, well, it saddens me to be here a second time about my trees. I was here about 3-4 years ago. Out of 23 trees, I was allowed to keep 4 of them. And with Mr. your Mayor's approval and Ben Benson, I was told that Joe Cronin would come out and mark the ones that he would decide that I would be able to keep. He put green ribbons on them, and I thought that was it, because this project was slated for 2018, the streets rebuilding and widening 2 feet on each side. Then it was moved to 2021, and now it's been moved back to this year, which now it's already begun. And anyway, I was working midnight to noon at the auto show at McCormick Place. I came home Saturday and saw two of the 4 trees that were allowed on 4th Street spray painted pink at the bottom, meaning that they were slated to be cut down. Those 2 were the bald cypress trees that are either side of my, what they call the service walk. That's the sidewalk that goes from the street to the house. There's 8.5 feet space in between. If you could drive a Bobcat between those trees and lift up those sidewalks, you know, and still not have any problem touching either tree on each side. Also, I noticed some other trees were spray painted where the proposed or planned sidewalk is, and the reason I was told by Dan Hansen was because there was a strip of sidewalk already somewhere between Jefferson and I think Washington, and it's a short strip because, as you know, the east side of 4th Street, east of Madison, I mean, was done a few years ago, and they widened that street, they put in new storm sewers, and they put the sidewalk on the north side, which makes much more sense than putting a sidewalk on the south side due to the winter sun. The angle of the sun is lower in the horizon, so the buildings shade that side of the street. My side of the street always still has snow on it when the other side, the north side, is already dry and melted. So it just doesn't make any logical sense to tear up the south side, which is more cost dollar-wise to the city, and the north side is where the water main is going, and the water main is going to be between the sidewalk and the curb of the north side. But of course, you're not putting the sidewalk on the north side because you plan to put it on the south side, which really doesn't make a lick of sense. Cost effective, you would put it on the north side because you're already tearing that side up anyway. Now you got to tear up both sides of the street just to put in the sidewalk on the north or on the south side, my side of the street, the odd number side. Anyway, so then I left messages on a few different people's phone numbers here in town Saturday. There was no response from anyone on Monday. I thought that I'd get some calls at work or something, but I didn't. Sunday, I came home, and the street on Madison side were sprayed. And my water main is connected to the water main that runs on Madison, which runs north and south. And the water main on 4th Street, my neighbor to my west, her first name's Marilyn, she's connected to that main, and that line cuts across the northwest corner of my parkway. So my house is I don't know, but on my street, it's the only one that's connected on Madison side. And I use a Brita water filter for my, faucet filter for my water, and that's perfectly fine. The water's good. And Dan said that I'd be hooked back up to that one. So anyway, there's a maple tree there, and there's one bald cypress which was also given a green ribbon that's next to the driveway. Dan said that he'd come and look at it and see if they could just use the backhoe to put the main in, but I don't know why they're putting it in the parkway. And anyway, so you could cut half of the roots off of that tree on the one side, and that thing's still young enough where it's going to regrow new roots and it wouldn't harm it, and that could remain there. The big maple, that has to come out. I understand that. And a big maple by a house is a bad idea anyway because of storms. They break branches and fall on roofs and stuff, and you guys know that in 2012 we had a big windstorm that went through here, and but anyway, then Monday I came home and the 2 birch on 4th Street were spray painted. Now those are 2 of the 4 trees that were allowed on 4th Street. So why would it take 3 days to do one corner property to spray which ones? And I'm thinking that maybe it's because I made some phone calls, somebody decided that they're gonna be hateful and come out and spray the trees, or as I spoke with my alderman, that Mr. Glugly, that sometimes neighbors see that there's spraying going on, they come out with their own spray paint and they spray trees, or they hang their own ribbons, and it's been known to happen. So, and this all started with my tree removal when the RVs weren't allowed in town. So neighbors, of course, tried to find infractions on other neighbors just to get, oh, well, I can't keep my RV, how come he's got trees growing there, and stuff like that. But, it's silly, it's childish stuff. But anyway, then I wrote emails to Mr. Benson, and I got what seemed like a general response to all similar concerns. It almost as if he didn't read them. But on those emails, I included photographs because when I had to cut down those trees, I took some last pictures of the beautiful line of trees that I had that's no longer there. And by the way, I cut them all down myself. I stacked them up nicely. All the city had to do was pick them up. My leaves, when they fall, I don't put them by the curb. I mulch them into the ground because it's perfect organic fertilizer.
Hey, Rick, I need,
Rick,
as
you know, worms.
Rick, I need you to wrap it up. We give 5 minutes.
All right,
It's been
I'm sorry, I'm
like
getting very
10
close to
now.
the bottom. Google Earth will have the old photos
Why don't
of
we,
my street.
hey, Rick, why don't we pull it up real quick? Can I show it?
Yeah, you can see the green ribbons on those pictures.
I mean, You keep talking, let me just use the computer.
Okay, well, anyway, so.
Joe, can I ask you a
pretty much
question?
That's about it. I just wanted to make sure that I still was able to keep my trees because I was allowed to keep them before when the same project was going on. And now, all of a sudden, they changed their minds, and I just can't understand that.
I can speak to so, we did have this conversation about 2016, maybe, somewhere in there?
2017
2017,
probably, yeah.
and we asked, basically, we assured him we'd go out and take a look. Basically, the city right-of-way is quite expansive in there, and so a lot of these trees are actually in the city right-of-way. And at the time, we weren't exactly sure what the design and scope was gonna be of the sidewalks in the street. We've gotten that all figured out now. What's the address again? I'm sorry,
433 East 4th Street. But I took into consideration the widening of the street and the sewer pipe being put in. My trees are 7 feet from the curb. You'd only need to go like maybe 5 feet from the curb. There's still 2 feet remaining. Those 2 trees in the front there on either side of the.
Yeah. So these
You
white
can see
trees.
the ribbon there.
Sure. These white trees are not on our approved tree list,
That's
and
an
they're on the
older folder, right?
city, yeah, this might be an older folder, but these are some of the trees that he's
And those
talking
two are
about.
the bald cypress.
So a sidewalk would be coming through here to connect to what you can see over here, which is another sidewalk and crosswalks that are there.
Well, the sidewalk is actually
Right.
close to the house. They're
Sure.
behind those trees,
Oops.
way behind them.
And those trees there's a big one, that one I think is going, right?
I took that,
That one's in bad shape.
evergreen is gone. I
So-
took it out.
Regardless, I just was trying to show what we were talking about here, because it's hard to vision, but,
Well, it's really actually quite easy to see
yeah.
that. If you look
So
up
these
the-
are the trees that were removed already, or will be
No,
removed?
those are the ones that I was allowed to keep, and there's
Okay.
8.5 feet in between them. The sidewalk is like almost next to the property line, which is about another 10, 15 feet in.
But you have to realize, there's a sidewalk coming from this way, that's gonna go all the way through
No,
here.
it's not on this side. The sidewalk's on the other side. It's next to the property line. The parkway is like 20-something feet.
You're talking on the backside of these trees.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the sidewalk will
Matches
be
with
on the
where it
backside.
sticks, where it comes out.
Correct.
Onto the other street, that little stub.
Correct.
So,
The 2 birch trees, all of these trees are, as Ben mentioned, they're not on the approved parkway list. I was not here for the initial discussions. I was made aware that there may have been some discussions in the past. What we are doing is we go out, we evaluate the trees, we evaluate the parkway. The two birch trees that you can see, they're already getting very close, if not into the ComEd wires through there.
no, they're not at all, actually. I planted them, they go up, and they've already trimmed for those things. Also, those bald cypress, those are native trees to our area. They were all harvested out in the 1800s.
Rick, I think the bottom line problem when this came up the first time was you planted a whole bunch of trees in the right of way.
Do you remember that whole line of trees? There was one one.
Right, which was the way you started, and we're like, yeah, man, that
those
just
were
doesn't
beautiful.
work. And so we
They were
thinned
beautiful
it, we
trees.
asked you to, they were beautiful.
Talking about beautifying
I
Lockport.
don't have a problem with beautiful trees,
How
but
is it
it's
turning
our
into-
right of way, Rick, that we use for all kinds of things, whether it's utilities or
Turning it into a
sidewalks.
concrete jungle is not
It's not your property. And so it's
Yeah,
the
but I
property
have to
we
take
use.
care of it, right?
It's the property we use for everyone to be able to
But I
walk
have to
on.
We will
take care of
replace
it.
some
I have
trees.
2 parkways to take care of because I'm on a corner lot.
And
All I'm
so,
asking is to
so am
keep
I.
it.
I gotta do the
was
same
allowed
thing.
to
I have a
keep-
corner lot too. I gotta do the same thing, Rick.
Legally speaking, I was already given the permission to keep those 4 trees.
I think we just try to be accommodating, knowing that you planted a whole bunch of trees in the parkway
Those
that you
trees were
shouldn't
already
have.
8 feet tall. If you look at some old Google Earth pictures, you'll see that it was beautiful looking. And my intention was to block the north wind, which is cold in the wintertime.
And that's fine.
And it was gonna serve the purpose. And it looked
It'd
beautiful.
be like
All
if you
the
came
neighbors
and
that came
planted
by
trees at City Hall,
complimented
Rick.
us about the
It's
trees.
not your property. It's
Yeah.
the city's property.
Well, then why should I cut the grass on that if it's not my property?
Because then we'll just have to charge you for it, because we'll cut it and then we'll
Okay.
put a bill.
Well, then, you know.
So if you
back
wanna
and
do it
forth.
that way, you
But I'm
can.
asking you to do a little for me, to allow me to keep those 4 trees and that one on Madison, because of that I have to take care of them. And they're not bothering anybody.
Rick, can't we move these trees?
Well, I can move those 2 small bald cypress, the birch, if the park district wants to come dig them
Because-
up, they can take them and plant them somewhere, but, you
Well, we
know.
also
You
planned,
said Joe put ribbons on these 4 trees, so that was our mistake?
no, there was originally another line of trees that was actually between those trees and the street. It was worse
They
before.
were all 7
yeah.
feet from the curb.
But
Look at old pictures.
basically, sidewalks have been, connectivity and sidewalks has been a priority for the council, and in a lot of these
Mr.
older
Benson,
areas.
The sidewalk is not
May I
near
s-
those
may I
trees.
finish
The
speaking?
sidewalk is in, the sidewalk's
Oh, I see
about
the
20
brown.
feet from the
May I
curb.
speak? Can I speak now?
Yeah, but you're
Am I gonna
covering it
speak?
up. Go ahead,
So these were.
There will be trees that will be replaced in the parkway, just like the city code and certain species. If there was some special tree that he wanted to try to save, we could certainly go above and beyond and try to relocate one somewhere else on his property, but as you can see, it's pretty dense in that area, but we could certainly try to work with them. We've tried to work with them in the past. But, you know, I don't believe he attended the committee or the neighborhood meeting that we had, and we're showing all these designs and plans, and now we're coming out to actually start to do this work, and he's obviously upset. And, of course, we always want to try to be as accommodating as we can, but at the end of the day, sidewalk and connectivity is in the design plan. We'd like to proceed.
Right, and the sidewalk is not in the way of these trees. That's not the concern here. The concern here is the sewer pipe that's gonna be put in when the street is
It'll all
widened.
be in the city right away, and you'll have some trees
And
when we get done.
bald cypress are native to our area.
And I'm not arguing that with you, Rick. The
Yeah, but I
problem
mean,
is.
I was allowed to
it's-
keep the trees in 2017.
Because we try to be as accommodating as possible, Rick.
Well,
It's
that
like-
was being accommodating by allowing me to keep 4 out of 23 trees. I was allowed to keep 4 of them.
Right.
Now you
Yes.
want to take those last 4
You
away.
planted a row of trees in the right of way, and then it's like we tried to be as accommodating
Yeah,
as
and, you
possible,
know,
but now we are in
with
fact
global warming
doing
and
the
stuff, we should be
improvements that
planting
we're
more
supposed
trees
to be
instead of
doing.
cutting them
Mr.
down.
Mayor, point of
But
order.
what about if we took those trees?
I could dig those bald cypress out myself.
Okay, but
But
what if
then
we
I
put
need time
them?
to have that, to do that. Look at the weather now. Can I go out there and dig those trees and transplant them?
Mr.
Are
Mayor,
you gonna let me finish?
Mr. Mayor,
Rick, I'm going to default to my staff. If they feel like the trees can stay, they stay. If they feel like they have to go, they go. They're in the right of
beautify the
way.
neighborhood.
And I'm very much, I live in this neighborhood,
good
Rick.
for
I
the-
believe in it, but it's like, there's certain things that they shouldn't have been planted there in the first
Well, we
place.
have to be concerned about our wildlife habitat also. We have to learn to live in harmony with it.
Yeah.
Not to cut everything down and give nobody no place. I feed the birds every night. I put the food
The
out.
trees you put in, Rick, they're growing there when the Lockport was founded, okay?
Those trees behind the power lines are bald cypress, and you can see that they're beautiful trees.
Mr.
And
Mayor?
they're the only deciduous conifer.
Yes. Any request to wrap it up, Rick? Sorry.
Okay, so-
I will default to my staff.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
what's the final
I
answer?
think they had I don't exactly know 100% what their final decision is, but sounds like they're gonna have to remove some trees. They might put some new trees in, it sounds like. I will default to them.
Or
I'm
maybe
not
they'll
gonna,
let
I'm not
me
gonna have a
keep those
nitpick
trees.
meeting about like what tree stays and global warming, man. This is like in the right of way.
it's
Done.
like, you know-
It's like, if it's in the right of way, we have to do what we have to do to make it work.
And it's like one
For
person
the
fighting
community,
City Hall.
not just for Black and Wind for your house,
It's like they say, you can't fight City Hall, right?
apparently.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick. All right, looking for a motion to
We
adjourn.
got in the
committee
White
of the
House,
whole.
too.
so moved.
Seconded. Can I get a, all in favor?
Aye.
You guys need 5, or you want to go through?
So do I get to keep those trees?
I told you, Rick, I'm going to default to staff. They're going to tell me whether they're keeping them or not. If you're telling me they got ribbons and they're supposed to get cut down, they'll get cut down. Whatever they tell me that they're going to do. We had a community meeting. Apparently, you didn't show up to that one.
I was not told that there was gonna be meetings about the.
I think they were pretty aggressive by hanging door hangers and going out there.
Get any door hangers on mine.
I can only try so hard to like, you know, other than to walk you to the meeting by hand. We have, other people came to the meeting, they knew about it. We'll try to be as accommodating as possible, just like we were the last time, but ultimately, man. Right, because we weren't putting the sidewalk in. Now we're doing the improvements. Dude, I'm done. Rick, I'm done. I'm done.
Mr. Mayor, shall we have a sergeant arms?
The sidewalk is further south.
Rick, do you really want me to get you escorted out of here? Because I need to move on. with the
Mr.
rest
Mayor,
of the
can we request a sergeant arms?
It's all right, we're done. I'm looking for a motion to start up city council meeting.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Saban. Schreiber.
Here.
Bergbauer.
Here.
Galogly.
Here.
Deskin.
Here.
Lobes.
Here.
Bartleson.
Here?
Coretta.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. So I'm looking tonight to have a motion for a consent agenda. Motion by Renee, seconded by Larry. All in favor?
I had requested,
Yeah, I'll bring it up. Okay, so the consent agenda tonight is CL1, Committee of the Whole Meeting Minutes, City Council meeting minutes from January 15th as well. There's the semi-annual review and approval of executive session meeting minutes. There's our payroll period ending January 12th. I have had a request to pull out the Chamberlain from the billing, which was a $60,000 bill, so that's going to be pulled off of the bills. We'll put that on as an action item. It's for the Chamberlain. Chamberlain, sorry. I'm calling it Chamberlain.
Yeah. Garage doors.
it is actually under bills,
it's under bills.
FN-2.
FN2, okay.
But I've also had a request to pull PW1 off as well. So the Chamberlain bill from FN2, and then PW1 has been asked to pull aside for an action item. So we will discuss those separately after this consent agenda. But on the consent agenda will be PW2, which is the Rudiger Tinelli and Associates. So looking for a roll call to approve said consent agenda. Anyone?
Actually, there would be a motion to approve.
Yeah, he didn't say,
consent
yeah.
agenda.
Oh.
I approve.
Sorry, looking for a motion. Okay, so Joanne and JR.
Now we can roll.
Sorry.
Okay, Saban.
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
And Bartleson.
Yes?
Beretta.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, so as an action item, just want to vote on the Chamberlain bill. It was for $60,150. Looking for a motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Darren, seconded by Mark. Discussion? Okay, looking for a roll call?
Saban.
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes?
Beretta.
No.
Motion passed.
All right, also for an action item then, we're looking for PW1, which is the Professional Engineering Services proposal for 14th to 18th. Looking for a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
JR, seconded by Renee.
Saban.
Well, is there any discussion, anybody want to say? We good? Okay, then roll call, please.
Saban.
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
Bergbauer.
Yes.
Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes?
Beretta.
No.
Motion passed.
Okay, my friends, looking for PW1, closure of State Street for Old Canal Days.
Yes, thank you, council and mayor. This is the item I tried to give you a little earlier. So closure of State Street. So this is for the 2020 Old Canal Days, PW-1. This would be, again, to go down as a separate item for our request to close Old Canal Days, close State Street for Old Canal Days. Similar to what we do on an annual basis, this also allows the annual cost of about $5,000. It's fluctuates a little bit annually depending upon signage that we require, but this would also include the signage that is required to provide the detour during this time. Looking for council's consideration for this item.
I make a motion to approve.
All right, JR. Second by Renee. Any discussion?
We are still trying to, we may manipulate the downtown a little bit. There might be a chance that we don't need to close State Street depending on where certain things are set up between the carnival and the craft show, and we're having Old Canal Days meetings. But we think this is good to approve, and if we need it, we will use it. The other thing we can confirm is that Old Canal Days will be where it has always been in 2020. We've been working with the IEPA, and we realize that it's going to take a lot of time and additional testing to get their approvals to have it moved down to the Chevron. And we just feel like it's pressure we don't need for this year and that we can look at it for future years. So everything at Old Canal Days will be the same as it was last year.
All right. Anything else? Do a roll call.
You got it. Saban.
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
Bergbauer. Yes. Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin. Yes. Lobes.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes.
Beretta.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right. Anything else? Any new business? We good? You scouts, you got anything to say? Nothing?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, looking for a motion to adjourn, seconded by Larry.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Taking a customer out to lunch in Kankakee. Are they done? I was gonna stop and say hi.